Alright everyone, it's time to briefly discuss More Than a Refugee, a YouTube video that was put out by YouTube itself in partnership with some other YouTubers, including corporate-owned individuals and groups, not just small-time YouTubers who happen to be refugees in the West, as a sort of piece to humanize refugees. Say, oh, well, I'm not a terrorist, I just want to be left alone, I want to live a better life, and so on and so on forth. I want to help refugees too, and here's how we should do that. Stop making so many friggin' refugees. Look, I never caused anybody to become a refugee. I was against the invasion of Afghanistan. I was against the invasion of Iraq. I was against running no-fly zones against Gaddafi in Libya. I was against striking Assad. I'm against arming and funding the FSA. I was against the Muslim Brotherhood. Not my problem. I didn't cause these things. You know who did? Idiots like George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Angela Merkel, Francois Hollande, and all the rest of these eggheads in various governments in the Western world. They're the ones responsible. If YouTube feels, or if these people feel, that the refugees have a sad plight, they need to be taken care of, you feel sorry for them. Some of these people are children, many of them are female. For some reason, their lives are weighed more heavily than, some 20-something dude. I don't quite get that because they're all human beings, but I guess that's a natural human tendency or something. You care about these millions of refugees. Okay, granted, I care about them too. You know what would be the best thing for them? Let them live their lives in their own countries so that they're not refugees in the first place. Even if you're caring for them in the Western world, you're admitting refugees, United States, UK, France, Germany, wherever the hell they happen to be going. You know what actually ends up happening? They've still been divorced of their rightful homeland. They've still seen their cities bombed. Their kids have seen combat for years and years at a time in some cases. We've devolved their cultures into nothing more than the most brutish civil wars because of our own foreign policy mistakes. And that comes because of corporatists like George W. Bush and Barack Obama. It comes because of globalists like Angela Merkel, like Francois Hollande. These people, they don't care about the plight of some random civilian in Syria, some random Libyan who gets their home bombed out. They don't care about these people. They don't give a crap. If they gave a crap, then when these wars started, or when they were suggested on paper to begin with, they would have said, well, we have a problem with this. We don't need any more wars. How difficult is it to explain to people, especially people on the left? You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. There was a time when you realized that this was the sort of problem that was spawned by a frenetic world police-style foreign policy in which we meddle in regimes that we have no business meddling with, that have done nothing fundamentally to us. Saddam Hussein did nothing to the United States. Say all you want about Osama bin Laden, non-state actor, had nothing to do with the government of Afghanistan. We could have put pressure on them to deal with the problem themselves. Why the heck are we involved in Syria? Why are we arming and funding militants there? Trump has continued some of those policies. He got rid of some of them, in all honesty. To his credit, he's gotten rid of a lot of those funding programs. Some of them still remain. We're still attacking Assad's forces when they get close to our own centers of operation. Why are we even there? We're not solving any problems. We're creating more of a problem. More refugees keep streaming into Europe. We've got a problem here. Will the United States, or will the United States not, take in refugees from such and such a country? And all of these countries that we're accepting refugees from, in part or in whole, were destabilized by U.S. proxy wars. And I'm fundamentally against that kind of war. If we are attacked directly, go ahead and lay waste to our enemies. And we shouldn't hold back either. If we're going to fight a war, let's fight it the right way. Not all this proxy war political bullshit. Oh, targeted strikes. We have 10 men there advising local forces. We throw money at the problem. Here, we'll do an arms sale. That's not the way to wage warfare. The way to wage warfare is you try everything in the book not to have to wage a war in the first place. If all else fails, you unleash hellfire on your enemy. That's how you do it. We used to understand that back when we used to win wars. Why the hell are we why did we get involved in Egypt? When Obama came and said, oh, the Muslim Brotherhood represents legitimate governing in Egypt and the old military establishment that was, maintaining order in the first place, they've got to go because of human rights abuses. New constitution is drawn up. And it was a shit show. And it abuses people 10 times worse. he still clings to the fabric of this weird, elaborate delusion that somehow life in Egypt is going to improve. The people there rose up alongside the military and said, no, we're not dealing with it. Screw up, go do your own thing in the United States. Leave us alone. We've got our own society here. We've got our own problems to deal with. So after endangering one of the largest economies in the region, which just happens to control a considerable proportion of trade in the region through the Suez Canal, and after causing monumental amounts of death and suffering in Egypt, finally they restore order. Good on them. I'm glad that they did. I hope that Assad manages to restore order in Syria. I don't care that he works with the Russians. I don't care that he's a strong-arm, authoritarian, quasi-dictator. We had the same thing with Saddam Hussein. Things were way better in Iraq before we got involved. What did we accomplish here? No, we wasted trillions of dollars. We saw thousands of U.S. soldiers die. We saw hundreds of thousands of civilians on this supposed other side die and accomplish nothing. Now we've got to deal with ISIS. And now these same people say, we need to keep being involved forever, I suppose, to mop up the problem that we ourselves created by causing these power vacuums. You want to help the refugees stop creating so many of them. I bet 9/10 of these people, they don't want to be in Europe. They don't want to be in the United States. You're so Eurocentric over there. The Hollands and the Merkels, they are so high and mighty. They proclaim how wonderful European culture is. Nothing, no problems here. We'll just bury our heads and ignore the problems we do have. We've got no problems. Everyone wants to be European. We're so mighty. We're so wonderful. It's the same crap that happened during the World Wars period. Oh, our cultures are so superior. Everybody wants to fucking come here. They didn't want to come to Europe. They wanted to stay in their own homes. They were raised up in their own ways. They have their own culture, their own language, their own cuisine, their own religious views. Let them have it over there. I don't care. I oppose many religious doctrines in this world. But if some group of people overseas has nothing to do with me, wants to practice any form of Islam they want to be Orthodox, severe Orthodox Jews, they want to be some sort of really, really out there Christians, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. Let them do that in their own nations. Let them have their culture. Why the hell do we keep getting involved? Every time we do, it gets worse because we keep waging warfare inappropriately. We should hold off. Why don't we stop shooting from the hip and invading and bombing other countries and screwing with them diplomatically for some reason or another that we can never truly fathom, other than some arms company wants to make a quick buck. One of Dick Cheney's friends, one of Obama's friends through Goldman Sachs. They want to make money. So they don't care if 1 million people get displaced from their homes. I do feel sorry for the refugees, and then it's a double whammy. I feel sorry for them twice. I feel sorry in the first place because of our stupid foreign policy that also adversely affects our economy and our way of life here. In the same token that they're wasting our money, they also say, oh, we need less privacy, less free speech here. We need more federalism, more big government to take care of some problem we ourselves created. That's number one. Then I feel sorry for the refugees because nobody is vetting them properly. And so for every refugee coming in, there's a chance that you also have one of the same people they're trying to get away from that are spawned by our foreign policies in the first place coming in alongside them. And then you have this weird situation where people who have nothing to do even with the proxy wars themselves come pouring in. And every single day, boats come across from some port in North Africa, laden down with people who, they're not from Syria, they're not from Iraq, hell, most of them aren't even Libyan. They come across to get welcomed by the Italian Navy, they land there, and then they disperse throughout Europe. And the European governments, supposedly so high and mighty, don't even track anybody. No, we don't want to be bigoted. No, the bigotry is you think your cultures are so superior that you can keep bombing people in third world countries and then begging them to come into your states to prop up your own ailing economies because of your own fiscal mismanagement. That's your problem. As far as the United States, I don't recall the time when our founders suggested it was a good idea to bomb other countries and then take people that have been displaced because of our own government's mishandling of foreign policy into the country and expecting them to assimilate. Expecting them to be, they'll love it here in the United States. They're going to love us so much after we bombed their neighborhoods to pieces. They'll love us so much for trying to kill the person that they have as a leader. A lot of these people, they still support Assad. A lot of the Iraqis had no problem with Saddam Hussein. Then we do get a government in place And then half the time we end up abandoning them when the terrorists show up. How does this make any sense? You want to help refugees stop making so many of them. Putting out a YouTube video and lighting candles is all well and good. Say a prayer. Pray to whatever God you happen to believe in. Oh, take care of these poor people. Please maintain us in this time of darkness. You know who caused that time of darkness was your own leaders. But the anti-war left completely abandoned ranks and became the pro-war left, and at the same time the pro-refugee left. Oh yeah, let's bomb things over there. Somehow this will solve the problems that all the other bombings didn't. And then when people get screwed over, we'll bring them over here and they'll feel so happy. They'll be so amazed at how wonderful our way of life is, you know, completely alien and foreign to them as it may be. That they'll just love it so much, they'll calm right down. No, they won't. They're bitter at you. They hate you half the time. They're only in your country because they've got nowhere else to go. Nobody in the region will take them. Saudi Arabians, they have all sorts of refugee tents sitting out in the desert. They won't even take anybody in. About the only country over there that treats them in a humane fashion is Jordan. How many people can fit in the fucking nation of Jordan? They've got millions of people already there. How can they take more? Turkey takes a bunch of refugees, treats them like dirt, and then sends them across to Europe. Yes, these people are going to feel so wonderfully amazed at European culture. Now, European culture's dying because of stupid mistakes like this. And there was a time when they believed, yeah, people should be able to get jobs and get ahead, and we should have freedom, as opposed to like the USSR. We're gonna love liberty here in Europe on this side of the Iron Curtain. They've abandoned all that crap. Now they're just one step from socialism. You're the same as these strong-arm figures all over the Middle East. Oh, nationalize the oil sales, give people some welfare. You know what? That way of life, at least to them, is normal. It's stable to them. That's what they're used to. You can think that it's strange. You can say, oh, how can people deal with life under somebody like Saddam or Assad or Gaddafi? You know what? They were strict law and order men. At least there was law and order before we got involved. That's one thing you can say in their favor. Chemical attacks aside, there was law and order. And their civilians weren't being purged by the hundreds of thousands by their own governments because of a bunch of terrorists rising up. That wasn't happening. Now, if you're worried, all of these Western countries, they're like, Russia this, Russia that, China this, China. Don't you think then it would be time to formulate an effective foreign policy that wins us allies instead of pisses off half the world? You want to cripple the Western world and hand over control to Russia and China? Always just keep frittering away our money. Devalue the currency a little bit more. Wage another proxy conflict while you're at it. Piss another million people off. Drop bombs on them. Then take them in and expect them to really love the country. That's how you accomplish it. That's how you destroy the Western world entirely. You want to destroy your own cultures? Just keep doing this crap. Make a YouTube video. It'll solve all of your problems. It'll make the world a wonderful place. We love refugees, says Obama, as he bombs more people and makes more refugees. That's the problem with Western culture right now. And that's all our government. I never bombed anybody in the Middle East. I never suggested anybody in the Middle East should be bombed. The only scene in the entire world that we should be involved in right now is the Korean Peninsula. Far, far away from the Middle East. And then only because there's good reason to believe a lot of people in North Korea, they'd probably rise up anyway if it weren't for how authoritarian their government is. Assad is well liked by people under Assad's control. Well, the people living in areas that Assad controls, do they seem miserable, or do people outside of that area seem miserable? That's the question to ask yourself. Under Saddam Hussein, in the days of fighting back then, when things were really bad in Iraq, who seemed more miserable? People in areas controlled by the government forces, or people in areas that were being slaughtered by Al-Qaeda? What about Libya, as Gaddafi, in the end, clung to power there? Which areas destabilized first? Areas that came under the control of some jihadist group, or areas that Gaddafi still controlled for a few extra days? The former. What about Egypt? Did the people of Egypt, by the tens of millions, not raise up in arms alongside the military to purge the same people we backed? If you're pro-liberty and you're pro-sensitivity and you want people to live in peace and you want things in the world to be tolerant, calm, everyone will be prosperous, the way to go about that's not randomly bombing other countries. Yeah, bombing for peace. There was a time when the left used to say, "Oh, bombing for peace is like fucking for virginity" and stuff like that. You've totally abandoned your goals and methods. Your state of mind is a complete 180 from what it was when you had any common sense. You used to understand these things. Oh, proxy wars doesn't work. It makes us enemies around the world. It doesn't make us safer. It doesn't make us more wealthy. It doesn't help any of the people we're supposedly liberating. So what the hell are we accomplishing? We're wasting money and lives and time. We're making an embarrassment out of the Western world. But these people, they don't want to talk about that anymore. They'd rather call me a bigot because I think we should make fewer refugees and leave people alone. No, it's because I'm anti-war. It doesn't accomplish anything. What wealth has been generated for me or any other random American because we keep bombing people? None. What country? Name a country in the last half century that has improved because of us getting involved. Can you name one? There might be a couple microstates out there, some Central American countries that did. Maybe Chile. Okay, Chile, there's your standout. Now they've adopted socialism. Good luck to the Chileans. Okay, one country out of what? A dozen? Yeah, what a great track record. We've fallen a long way from the time when we were reluctant to get involved in war. Like in the World War situations, when we sat to the side and said, well, we're hoping somebody sorts this out because we don't want to get involved. That was the smart thing to do. We tried to use diplomacy, and we tried to use economics. And when we went after the USSR, when we went after them to the jugular more directly, how did we do that? How did we accomplish that? Did we bomb the USSR? Did we get involved in a nuclear war? Did we kill 100 million Russians? No, we used economics. We used diplomacy. And the USSR fell. It completely shattered. That's how you accomplish these things. And if everything else fails, then you bomb things. But you don't hold back. If you're going to do that, you lay waste to the region. That way you don't have a refugee problem. You completely decimate the entire region. But nobody has the balls to do that anymore. They're too strangulated by the UN or something like that. The UN doesn't care about refugees either. When the UN shows up, you know things have gone to shit. They're not there to help you. They're there to extract tribute. They're there to justify their own, abuse. They're to hire prostitutes or whatever, run the slave trade. They just take over for whatever local tribal mafia happens to be in control, and they kick them out, and they do the same thing. I have nothing but reprehension for these people. Can't the left see that the globalists are doing everything that you judged to be wrong in the world 10 years ago? They're doing it all. They're doing it openly. You don't even bat an eye at it. That's the real problem. If you want to save refugees, if you think they're more than refugees, they're people. They suffer, they bleed, and so forth. They're children and women. Well, then stop making so friggin' many of them. There's your solution. Wow, it's almost like common sense. It could almost work. As in, we leave countries alone, and even if they're under the control of, authoritarian systems, they remain stable. Wow, there's no refugee crisis. Why don't we use diplomacy? Why don't we use the carrot instead of the stick for once and try to use money to solve these problems? And I don't mean funding some radical uprising, some guerrilla movement that wants to supplant a government, throw everything into chaos. No, try to improve their lives, maybe draw them closer to the West. Oh, we're doing it in India. We're doing it in Vietnam. Oh, it's working there. Things are getting more prosperous, less authoritarian, more diplomatic relations. Good, it's good for the world. Let peace reign for once. In the Middle East, no, we gotta bomb people. No, we gotta run a blockade, sanction their asses. Let's get involved. Now, let's bomb some civilians. That'll make them feel really good about us. They'll be real pro-Western when we start bombing them. Why do you think these governments keep working with Russia? Russia's not the one bombing them constantly, causing the fucking problem in the first place. You're so worried about Russian intrusion, Russian espionage. Russia took back Crimea. Russia might do World War III. They're empowered to do it. You're handing them allies on a golden platter left and right recently. For the last 16 years, we've been handing them allies left and right. You're crazy. You're crazy if you think that a YouTube video is going to solve the problem. Look at the comments. Some of them aren't so prosaic as what I'm suggesting. Some of these people feel really socially alienated because they don't know what the hell is going on. All they see is their government is admitting a bunch of people who won't assimilate. I say it goes beyond that. I have the presence of mind to look at the situation and say, oh yeah, it might be our foreign policy is flawed. But a lot of people won't see it that way. They'll just blame the refugees, and there's nothing YouTube's going to do about that. There's nothing that some government's going to do about it. You get the same people, the same Merkel or Hollande or Obama that wants to bomb people out and do regime change and nation building. You're the ones causing the problem. And there are a lot of people who are too ignorant to see that that's what you're doing. How very fortunate for them. They get to keep their jobs and their lucrative salaries and all their corporate kickbacks and all of those things. Wonderful. Round of applause for our glorious leaders of the Western world that are doing such a good job in the Middle East. Things are really a lot better there than they were around 9/11. No, they're 10 times worse. And they're going to keep getting worse so long as we don't rein in our governments from doing this crap. You want to solve the refugee crisis? The left says, well, they're people, we feel sorry for them. The right says, well, we don't want refugees here. You can both solve the problem. Lean on your governments to stop getting involved in these countries. Leave them the hell alone. That's about all. Peace out.